Aloha mai kako. I have to apologize in advance because I'm reading some of this. Otherwise, I would get off track and we'd be here till tomorrow morning. But I'm used to sitting on a beach chair in a circle up at Haiku telling stories or sitting on the ground under a tree at Naoniala'a. So I'm not used to telling stories in this format. So bear with me. I'm happy to be seeing all of you this evening and sharing some of my stories. Actually, any of you could be standing right here with me because everybody has stories. You all have stories. If you haven't written them down yet or recorded them electronically, or if you haven't had a chance to ask your own family elders to share their stories, I urge every one of you to take the time to collect the memories that can be shared by yourselves and your kupuna. I was born and raised in Kaneohe to a large, extended Cypher family who lived in the Windward area, primarily from Kaneohe to Kahalu'u. I first developed my love for stories sitting at the knees of my tutu, Grandma Elizabeth Cypher, who regaled me and my cousins with many stories of her life in Hilo, Maui, and here in Kaneohe. Our family home was on Waikalua Road, and my earliest memories are of the many large family parties given in the big white house on Cypher Lane, where friends and families from throughout the area were invited to enjoy Uncle Louis Marino's honky-tonk piano music and the singing of beloved Hawaiian songs and World War II ballads. My tutu told me that the property on which our home was built might have been located near a heiau. A Portuguese gypsy woman had visited the home when it was first built. She blessed all around the boundaries of the property and buried a jug of water, holy water, in the corner of the lot, nearest the lane that gained access to our home. Later, a Hawaiian friend of Tutu's, who could see unusual things, told her that she could see a fire burning in the corner of the yard where the jug of holy water had been buried. A Pōkane tree was later planted there. She said it may have been an imu pit at one time used for ceremonial purposes. Tutu spoke of a neighbor, a blind man who lived in the house next door, who had told her that he saw a line of uhanihele, night marchers, who regularly walked along an invisible trail 3 feet over the hedge that once marked the boundary between the two homes. My Auntie Adeline also was able to see these uhanihele as a young girl, but after she had grown up and became a practicing Catholic, she never spoke of it again. My grandma said her tutu told her there is a calm side and a windy side to the pathway of the night marchers. If you stayed quietly on the calm side, you would be okay. But if you were on the noisy side and attracted their attention, they could drag you into the march and take you away. I belong to the Olaupoko Hawaiian Civic Club, and we have received a number of calls from residents over the years who asked for help or advice concerning visitations of spirits in their homes here in the Kaneohe area. They described them as Hawaiian warriors or Kanaka Maoli from times kahiko long ago. There are few kahuna pule who can deal with these issues anymore, but we used to refer people to those who knew how to communicate with these uhanihele. These pathways are apparently all over, usually along streams or ridgelines, but amazingly there was one such pathway along the hedge by our home, leading down to Kaneohe Bay. When any of these pathways are followed by the uhanihele, they reach a leina, or a leaping off point. There the spirits are judged by whether they lived a good life. If they did, their spirits would be accepted into the realm of Aumakua. If not, they would become wandering spirits. One such leina is at Kealohi Point, the edge of He'ia State Park. There are so many memorable places throughout Kaneohe town. Back then, the Kaneohe Police Station and Courthouse were located across from the Kaneohe Fire Station on what is now the grounds of Ben Parker School's kindergarten classes. My grandpa George Cypher was one of 2 police officers who patrolled the entire Windward Coast from Makapu'u to Waimea Bay. I remember my Auntie Elizabeth Lau's retelling of a story from Papa Cypher from his days as a police officer. At Moli'i Fish Pond, which is located in Hakipu'u just before Kualoa, there was an old Japanese man who was caretaker of the pond. He told my grandpa, "Cypher, I'd like to show you something. Come see me later, just before dark." My grandpa remembered his request, and sometime after, he visited the old man at Moli'i. They stood on the bank of the fish pond, staring over the pond toward the ocean. Just as the sun started to sink behind the Kualoa Range at their backs, when it was turning dusk, Grandpa said he saw this massive black shape slide out of the pond along the beach toward Kualoa, across the land bridge to Mokoli'i Island, where it climbed to the summit. It was so large, it covered the top of the island. Other families in Hakipu'u have reported similar sightings of this large animal, and why not? Off the coast of California in recent years, they have discovered large marine animals living in the depths of the ocean. And I would bet that if that giant he'e, which is what my grandpa described it as, is still living at the bottom of Moli'i Fish Pond. A couple of stories from my grandma now, they come to mind. Some of you may be familiar with the term aumakua. Those spirits that watch over us, usually our ancestors who have passed, or an animal or other object that families feel are protectors of our ohana. It seems my tutu's great-grandmother gave birth one day to a son, but there were strange circumstances surrounding the birth. When the child was born, the midwives found the afterbirth and another strange lumpy sac, which they promptly buried near the ocean, thinking it was an unformed twin that had not developed. A while later, when they returned to the spot where the sac and afterbirth had been buried, they could find no trace of the sac, but a strange trail of wet substance was seen leading down to the water's edge. The son which had been born and grew in years, he thrived and grew in years. And when the time came, he joined the other men at sea to fish on the double-hulled canoes, when a third smaller canoe in the middle to store the fish that were caught. The men pulled in a large haul of fish and turned around to return to shore, but they were startled when they saw a large fish. Was it a shark or maybe a dolphin? Swimming alongside. They tossed fish to the big creature, which dived down and gave the fishermen time to paddle closer to shore. It was said the fish was the brother of the young man whose mother had given birth to the mysterious sac. The mother remembered her earlier years when, after she had given birth, she went swimming in the water close to shore and felt a sensation of something nursing at her breast, but she could see nothing. A member of the family said that whenever the man went out fishing, the large creature would always accompany the canoes, but when the man was not with the fishermen, the creature would not appear. When the man finally grew old and died, the family said the great fish was seen once more. It had large shell-like wrinkles covering his skin as he surfaced for one last time, never to be seen again. The fish tale was to be remembered years later. My tutu's cousin and other members of her Hilo family were considered safe from shark attacks because they frequently swam in the shark-infested waters and came to no harm. There was an accident when Tutu's cousin died after he dove off a bridge near Pu'uea in Hilo district. The boy had dived many times before that, but this one time, he hit an electrical wire that crossed near the bridge and fell awkwardly into the water. Tutu was called hurriedly to the bridge, only to see the bubbles caused by his last surfacing above the water and his drowning. She said his body could not be found for 6 days, partly because the stream waters had been muddied by recent rains bringing soil down from the mountains. And where was his body found? Miles away at the opposite end of Hilo Bay near Coconut Island. The boy had been dead for 6 days, carried underwater, miles away through seas swarming with sharks, yet the only damage to his body was to his hands, which had been nibbled at by small crabs. His body had been preserved, untouched by the man-eaters. Now back to Kaneohe. I have many happy memories of growing up in Kaneohe town, where as a kid, I sold Star Bulletin newspapers outside Doty's store and Waialin supermarket. Doty's was where Jack in the Box is now, and Alin supermarket was where Walgreens is today. Those are actual places from recent history, but in ancient times, Kaneohe was filled with many heiau, which were the churches of our Hawaiian people, and there were dozens of fish ponds and other interesting places of antiquity. If you saw the map out in front earlier tonight, you would have seen lots of sites that are marked. It comes from a book called Sites of Oahu. So it's a really interesting book. If you ever have a chance to get one, you should get one while it's still in print. Anyway, I would like to mention a few of the sites that are important in Kaneohe before I'm done. The round heiau along Pali Highway on Pu'uvaniania Ridge, dedicated to both Lono and Kane. Kawaiwae heiau, built by Chief Olapana in the 12th century, located near Pohainani. Kukuyo Kane heiau, the largest heiau in the Kaneohe region, dedicated to Kane, the god of Oahu, and considered the mightiest of the Hawaiian pantheon of gods. It's located and intersected by Likelike Highway and H3, and No'oneala'a, located at the end of Waikalua Road, where Chief La'amaikahiki lived and built 3 heiau, famous in Hawaiian history as the place where peace was made after years of war and bloodshed among the islands. I should also mention that the name Kaneohe did not come from the silly story of an angry husband beating his wife with a bamboo stick. This rich ahupua'a, filled with farms, fish ponds, and running streams, would have been named after something much more important. It comes from a grove of Hawaiian bamboo located near Kukui'o Kane Heiau. So Kaneohe really means the sacred bamboo grove of the god Kane. I hope all of you have taken seriously my urging for you to write down or record your own stories, or those of your kupuna, or if you are kupuna, write them down or talk into your phone and record your stories, because I know you remember stuff that happened 50 years ago better than you remember last week. So write them down or tell someone your stories, because that's part of your family's heritage. So when things change and places disappear, buildings and places you love, at least the stories stay alive and your family's memories are collected. So I hope you have enjoyed a little of my stories this evening, and have a nice, safe ride home. Thank you. Aloha.